And now I would like to welcome you, Johannes Vogel, Member of Parliament, and you represent the Free Democratic Party, FDP, and you're the spokesman of Labour policy, and I'm very much looking forward to listening to you. You represent a very important political party, but also a very huge country in Europe, so please, welcome.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the kind invitation. I was asked to tell you something about the situation on the labor market in Germany, especially when it comes to the shortage of skilled labor and migration. And I'm happy to do so. What I want to do is to tell you first something about the situation in Germany, especially when it comes to the labor market today. Then a few notes, what is behind it, why are we performing that well, having so low unemployment, and third, why is the shortage of skilled labor the main challenge we're facing today in Germany, and then fourth, what is being done about it, especially when it comes to migration. Well, some of you might know Germany was hit the hardest by the financial crisis in 2008 in Europe, but we also were the first to recover. And when it comes to unemployment, we have a very low unemployment rate today. We have the lowest youth unemployment rate all over Europe today, which is because we're reaping the fruits of reforms and a healthy business sector. Go a little bit more into details. What you can see here is that the German growth plumbing so fast, but then going up right directly after the crisis in 2009, 2010 again. And the unemployment is one of the lowest under industrial countries today, which you can see here. And to have a more detailed look into the German situation, you can see that after an all-time high in 2005, we're getting lower and lower since then. Why is that? What is behind the job window? Job window, we call it in Germany. Perhaps that you might understand what it means. Well, the first reason is, of course, the competitive businesses we have in Germany. Not only the big companies, especially the small and medium-sized enterprises, they form a cutting edge. In Germany, it's famous and well-known under the phrase Mittelstand. The international growth helps because we are one of the leading export nations in the world. So when the global economy grows, Germany is likely to participate. The third reason, I think, is wage restraint. From 2009 to 2007, we had a period of solid foundation. Labor costs were stable, they're not going up like in many other countries all over the world. And Germany had labor market reforms over the last, let's say, 10 years. There were really tough debates in Germany. One really could say blood, toil, and tears and sweat. We even lost the government. The Schröder government got elected out of power because of these reforms. But I'd say today they were worth it. But now we're facing another threat, which is the prospect of a shrinking workforce because of the aging society. I think we all share all over Europe. That may solve some problems over the short term, but create huge new ones on the long term. To go a little bit more into details here also, the World Economic Forum sees Germany as one of the most business competitive countries, even better than the United States, France, UK, as you can see here. And we do have a big international growth demand. According to a Goldman Sachs study, we'll see it until 2020, 30, 40 and 50. Still big growth in the countries like Brazil, India, China, and Germany exporting a lot to these countries is likely to participate from that. What you can see here is that the wage setting system in Germany, which is based on collective bargaining between the unions and employer organizations, works very well. While labor costs in other countries are slightly going up, but continuously going up, in Germany they were at least stable, sometimes even going down. What you can see here is the crisis. we had not many people getting fired while the crisis, so labor costs went up, but then immediately get down under the level we have it right now. And as an exporting country, that also is a very important point, being competitive compared to other countries, I think. The labor market reforms. The Schröder government implemented a lot of reforms. We had the so-called Agenda 2010. We had an almost complete overhaul of the welfare system. Some of you might follow the debate. It's called Hartz IV. And we had extensive changes in labor market regulation, which leads to that we have now a very, very flexible labor market, which is good, like liberals should know. We had reforms of the German pension system. Later on we had just a pay-as-you-go pension system, but we combined it with individual capital cover 10 years ago. And we had a shift of the retirement age to 67. So 2030, the retirement age in Germany will be 67. We had healthcare reforms and do have ongoing reforms on active labor market policies and very scientific evidence-based approach. And we do continuously modernize our institutions and the programs when it comes to qualification and stuff like that. So that's behind the job hunter. So the good situation in Germany, but we do have, like nearly every other country, a prospect of a shrinking, nearly every country in Europe, a prospect of a shrinking workforce, which is really, really heavy. In 2030, we will be at least 6 million workforce of less than today. That is the size of one of our states, like Hessen. So really, a big part of the German workforce will no longer be there or retired, and that is true. If we we will be better when it comes to migration than today. What you can see here is that without continuous immigration in the future, it will be even much, much less. What one should know is that we didn't reach a net migration of 100,000 plus every year over the last years. Not at all. We had years like 2008, 2009, where even more people left Germany than they came in, for example, to Turkey. But we do need get like every year from now 300,000 people net migration more in Germany than today, just to have only 5 million people less by 2050. Another problem we're facing is that we're not very good by attracting qualified immigrants. We're not very good when it comes to skilled immigration. What you can see here is that the US or Canada, they do a lot better when it comes to migration in general, but especially they're doing much better when it comes to skilled or qualified migration. The percentage of qualified immigrants coming to Germany, of all immigrants coming to Germany, today is 22%. In the US it's 49%, in Canada it's even it's 44%, in Canada it's even 59%, and in Australia they're also very, very good, over the 50% threshold. But we do have a growing demand for skilled workforce, not only because we are shrinking an aging society, but also because we need to be innovative, especially as an exporting country, so we need skilled labor to stay so and to continuously create growth in the future. Right now, we are already missing 65,000 skilled workers in the mathematics, engineers, and technics area, but it's just the beginning. In the future, in the upcoming years, it will be in the millions. What are we doing about it? Well, not only migration, of course. Migration can only be one answer. Of course, we do have to be even better in activating qualification of unemployed persons. Like I said before, we're quite good at that compared to other countries, but we still have a unemployment rate of 65%, so there still are a lot of people you can bring in the market if you qualify them. We need to get better when it comes to integration. The unemployment rates of immigrants or people with foreign roots are roughly twice as high as non-immigrants. And we have a lot of immigrants, they do have a professional qualification which is not recognized in Germany. We implemented a law to change that this year, while we lost that for the years before. Is everything okay? Can you hear me? Okay. The occupation rate of women is relatively high compared to other countries, but it's mostly only part-time work. Bringing more women full-time to work could be a major answer tackling the shrinking workforce. And we do have a pension age of 65, going up to 67 over the next years, but the actual pension age is lower. So people, they do get earlier, they get less money then, but they chose to do so. So we are right now discussing in Germany a lot how to change that. Actually trying to adopt kind of a Swedish system, which is very flexible. And as far as I understand, the actual pension rate is relatively high in Sweden because it is so flexible. So we are trying to add this flexibility to our system, having a pension age of 65 going up to 67. And we do want to extend professional training. 90% of the German companies say in polls that they want to extend professional training on the job, qualifying the workforce they already have, but compared to other European nations, we are not very good at it right now. We're lagging behind. And so we are working on changing that. We have implemented, for example, a government program to support especially small companies, to give them a lot of little subsidies to invest in the ongoing qualification of their workforce they already have. But, of course, we do also need a lot more immigration, like I told you before. And the system in Germany was quite strict. Until this August, so 2 months ago, the system in Germany was that the only way to migrate, to immigrate for labor was to have a concrete job offer by a German company, which is tough. If you like work in Shanghai at a German company already there, it's fine to get a job offer in Germany. But if you're not, if you like, for example, live in Vietnamese, the origin of our vice chancellor, my party chairman, and just wanting to migrate, for example, coming to Germany without getting a job offer is a tough thing. For example, if you invited, even if you are invited to a job interview, you can't come, you can't go there. So that might be a problem, and that's why we changed that. But not only that, we still have a system of migration through a concrete job offer, but we also had a threshold of annual income to be able to come. The threshold was pretty high. It was 66,000 euro a year, which is for young people starting a job a very, very high barrier. So we lowered that to 44,000, and for people who work in areas who are actually needed right now, for example, engineers or mathematics or stuff, it's even lower. It's 35,000 today. But in addition to that, like I told you before, it's no longer only migration by concrete job offer. We also implemented a 6-month visa for job search. That's a way of adopting the idea other countries like the Canadians or the Australians have with their point system. In Canada, for example, it is possible if you match the criteria, you can go there for a year, search a job in Canada. In that year, you're not allowed to get any fruits of the welfare state, but you have the possibility to search your job. And then if you got one, you can stay for another 3 years, and if you still have a job afterwards, you can stay forever. And we implemented the same system in Germany. Everybody having or earning a university degree is allowed to go for 6 months. For 6 months to Germany now, get a job searching visa. Also not allowed to get any welfare state subsidies in this period, but if he found a job or he or she found a job afterwards, he or she can stay for 3 years, and if you still have a job afterwards, you can stay forever, which is, I think, a very smart and modern system. And it's only one step away from a point system like the Canadians or the Australians have, because now it's easy to change the criteria for getting or being allowed to get a job searching visa. Now it's earning a university degree. You could change that easily in the upcoming years. And we do have a prolonged period for job search for foreign graduates at German universities. I was curious and interested to learn yesterday that in Sweden it's 6 months and it was 3 months before. For me that seems to be very, very short. We had it for 6 months in the past and now extended it for 1.5 years. Because of course it's absurd. We invest a lot in educating these people and then they have to go out and find a job elsewhere. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But I do think that having a modern migration system is necessary, but I don't think that that is enough to bring 300 people every year in over the next years. So we have to add additional steps. One is promotion and recruitment. Germany had a systematic policy of recruitment until 1973 in Southern Europe, especially in Turkey. It was very successful. The goal then was not so high qualified and skilled labor, but that was what the German economy needed back then. Today we need skilled and high qualified labor, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't implement a recruiting policy again. We just need to make concrete advertisement. And we're very good at selling cars all over the world. I do think it should be possible to sell the idea that Germany is a good place to get a good job, have a good life, getting children, grow old, and stay there. But we should start, because other countries do. I've been to Bangladesh last year. It was pretty interesting, because when you drive over the streets there, around the streets there, you can see concrete advertisement. They have huge banners from Canada, from the Canadians, stating like, come to Canada. And we as Europeans, we're not present at all. In Germany, I think Europe as a whole, and Germany especially, should start to do so. And I think the third point is we need a welcoming culture. I don't think that Germany is today famous for being an immigration country all over the world. I wouldn't say so. And some debates we do have about integration programs, some Islamophobia debates we do have. I think that doesn't help. And so I think we as a country, as society, the politicians, but also the private sector, we need to get better as being a welcoming country who's well known all over the world for being open for skilled labor from all over the world to come. Because I think there already is a lot of competition over the best brains all over the world. Other countries are very active in that, like the Canadians, like the Australians, like other ones. Europe, especially the countries not having a history of colonialism, like Germany, are lagging behind, and we should change that. So that was my short overview of the situation in Germany. I'm now happy to discuss any questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Johannes. Very interesting presentation. Often when we have politicians on stage and we try to afterwards to say, well, okay, now we're trying to make this concrete because it's all at such a policy level. You've made my job a lot more difficult by already being so concrete. Nonetheless, I would like to take it a level deeper and say that yesterday we had a speaker who said it's not migration that drives integration, but it's actually integration that drives the migration, because migrants are very well aware and they know very well what's going on in which place. I think you spoke a little bit about that in welcoming culture. Nonetheless, that is still an abstract concept. How can we give that kind of feed and really make that happen?
Good question. Hard to answer. Because I think it's hard to find a solution. Because it's not something, we can't cannot implement a law stating Germany is a welcoming country. Or we could, but it wouldn't help much. So it's something I think it needs to grow within the society. Of course, it has something to do with policy. For example, if you want to go to Germany, live there, get a visa or something, of course, at some point you meet German officials. And I, for example, I do have friends being really high qualified, having studied at a university in the US, which is on the Ivy League level, and wanting to come to Germany from the Philippines. Well, what they tell me, how the German officials reacted, is not what I mean by welcoming culture. It was more like approach like, you want to come to Germany? Interesting. Perhaps. What are you going to do? Getting a job or just lying around in the welfare state? I mean, for really, really high qualified people, having a much better degree than the German official asking. So I think that's the part we can do in the administration. But it'll take time. It'll change over time, but it has to change. The second thing is, I think, how we do debates, especially when it comes to integration. Germany, of course, has integration problems, yes, but there is a reason for it. We recruited a lot of low-skilled labor in the past. We wanted them. We wanted people to do the easy jobs. We wanted people to take care of our waste. We as Germany, I was very young at that time, but Germany as a country, take care of our waste, for example, and we brought them in. And I think they're important in the economic progress and success Germany achieved in the past. But then politicians had the brilliant idea to think these people, they will go again one day. We even called them Gastarbeiter. I don't know how to translate that term, but politicians told the German public these people will go. Of course, they're still there and do have children and grandchildren today, which is good. For example, my girlfriend, my girlfriend's father is from Turkey. I think that's a good thing that we have these people in Germany today. But of course that failed. And so Germany didn't implement concrete integration policies for ages. And we started like bringing up mandatory language courses 10 years ago. Not before, 10 years ago. We started like having integration courses around 10 years ago. So, of course, you can't see the results out of these policies today. It'll take time. But I think the responsibility for politicians then is to explain that. And that out of integration problems in the past, some of them, or most of them I'd say, created out of a failure of politicians. That shouldn't be an argument for the German public to be against future or migration in the future. These are elements. I don't know if that's enough, but I think it's a good place to start to create a welcoming culture.
Well, you mentioned yesterday there was a lot of talk about the F word. That people said they would mention, not mention. It was somewhere in the air, the F word. On federalism.
What's the F word?
Federalism.
Federalism.
Don't worry. Freiheit.
Yeah, great.
I think you already touched upon maybe the M word today. The M word that I'd like to introduce is mandatory. Because I know that you have to, exactly, you get my point. I know that you have to leave very quickly, unfortunately. We're very glad that you're here today this morning. We would love to have you longer. But I already want to take a little peek into the afternoon's discussion afterwards. And you immediately identify the problem. How can you, as a liberal spokesperson, as a liberal, let's say, one of Germany's leading liberal politicians, speak of mandatory integration? It seems a bit of a contradiction in terms.
I see your point, but of course, as a liberal, you don't implement mandatory policies easily, not at all. But liberalism, I think, is not only about freedom, freedom in a sense that there are no rules, no mandatories at all. I think liberalism is also about getting everybody the chance to have a successful life, to live their dream, and so on. And for doing that, I think education is crucial. Of course it is. I mean, we as liberals, we know that. And if I see, for example, today in Germany that without mandatory language courses for everybody, not only for migrants, but for everybody, especially migrants, do have problems in the education system. I'm not willing to accept that. And to do it a little more pragmatic, we had a discussion yesterday, I don't know any people of foreign roots, any migrant in Germany being against it, actually. I don't see any. I don't know anybody in Germany who says that mandatory language courses before school is a bad idea. But because it is about education.
Do you choose conservative pragmatism over liberal principles?
No. Isn't it? I think it's liberalism to give everybody the best chance to live his dream, isn't it?
I think that is a beautiful sentence to go to the floor. And there are undoubtedly a lot of questions on the floor.
I'm not for mandatory policies in other areas, but here I think it's a good idea. We do have mandatory education, actually, I think, in nearly every state, and we as in the world, and we as liberals always promoted that idea, didn't we? Came out of, I think, the same thought.
Yeah, you convinced me. Now let's hear about the audience. Like yesterday, we encourage you to use Twitter, follow the discussion, to give your input, and I will follow it as well. It would be appreciated if you can use the hashtag Boliden again, and also add the hashtag ELF to your discussions, and then we can feed it back. But for now, Andreas, would you be kind enough to get a hand mic? Oh, you have one already. That's what I call proactive. In the back, first question. Otherwise, use your voice and I will repeat it if necessary.
Thanks, Johannes, for a great talk. I was going to ask you about, you're mentioning the blue card and German national high school immigration policy, and how over the years the salary threshold was at least decreased. And I would like, was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the political situation in Germany, because
What situation?
the political situation in Germany and how different parties look at
Migration.
Migration. Sorry, there's a follow-up to that. And specifically, there used to be a kind of an opposition to the EU blue card, and it seems like that has changed. And Chancellor Merkel said we're going to focus on the blue card now, and the threshold is really decreased. But what happened, in the meantime, shifting the focus from more the national to the blue card, if you could tell us.
Well, the blue card set the framework to change the national immigration laws, actually. We still have no common immigration policy all over the Union, and I learned yesterday that smaller countries like Sweden would like to have it that way, or keep it that way. Well, but the blue card framework gave us in the governing coalition, the chance to bring up the debate again and implement these, I think, very modern and very liberal new migration rules in Germany. We have implemented this August, so it's a month ago. Well, you're right. There was a lot of opposition about this idea, and you can. It's easy to understand where this opposition comes from because there's one word for it: barrier. Our conservative friends in the governing coalition were the opposition against the ideas, especially the Bavarian branch of them, and especially a few really very conservative thinking people. But, well, what changed? The situation. The prospect of a shrinking workforce is getting in the minds of the people, especially in the minds of the companies. And they're pressing hard, even our conservative friends, to do something about it, which is a good thing, I think. And secondly, Chancellor Merkel supported it, of course. But third, we as liberals. I mean, it's not only Merkel. I spent for 1.5 years, I spent hours, too many hours, sitting in dark rooms, bargaining with our conservative friends about this issue. It took a lot of time. I mean, we needed, we're governing since, we're in this coalition since 3 years now, and now we changed the law. And we started to bargain and discuss about it at the very beginning. But in the end, somehow we cracked the resistance, and it changed. But, well, I'd say if you had invited a conservative colleague of mine from Bavaria, he wouldn't like to talk about these issues today. They still don't like it, but they no longer say something against it. And that helps. That's enough, I think. In the end, it's about the law. And the law is good.
Somebody else in the audience has a question.
Hello, senior gentleman. You've already touched upon it slightly, but why do you think it's so hard for Germany to attract high-skilled labor, both culturally and bureaucratically? Is it only the debate, like the turn of the debate, or other things?
I think it's three things come together. We had a catastrophic, bureaucratic, and horrible system with very high barriers. You need to change that, of course, first step. We did that now. Then I think it's the tone of the debate, the culture. I mean, me as a German, you might be the better person to answer the question, but my impression when I'm traveling around the world is we are not famous as the #1 immigration country in the world. We need to change that. And third, I think it's concrete recruitment. Why not starting concrete advertisement like the Canadians do? Why not? So I think when all three things will be coming together in the future, then we hopefully will see slightly progress. We need.
More questions in the audience? I have another question for you that came out of the debate yesterday. And that was the idea to get people, attract them, use all these methods that you just explained. But then, once they get there, maybe not immediately grant them full access to all the benefits of the welfare state. Say, well, you're here, you kind of have to prove your merits, we give you that chance, and then bit by bit we just tell you which steps you need to take to get that full access. And that might also work to get a bit of polarization out of the debate, the resistance, xenophobia, the fear of xenophobia a little bit less, and kind of make a gradual entrance into the welfare state where necessary. What would you be your comment?
Well, I think it's a fair idea like the Canadians do, like we implemented the job search visa now, that for the period you're searching a job, you have to be on your own. You have no right to get benefits from the welfare state. I think that's fair. That's okay. That's a fair idea. But afterwards, if you found a job, I think you have to be equal. You have the same rights like everybody. Because, like we discussed a minute ago, I don't think that the situation is everybody is standing around the German border wanting to come in, and we just have to lower the barriers. Obviously not. We have to get a little better with marketing. And when it comes to marketing, you have to know what to sell. And I think Germany is a great country. I love it. I love to live there. We have great jobs, great companies, all of that. But I also know that other countries do also have things on their plus list, like the Canadians, like other countries. For example, English. I mean, in Germany, you need to speak German, which is a great language, but hard to learn. So I think we also have we have to have specific things on our plus list. And for example, the welfare state is one. We as liberals fighted for reform of the welfare state to keep it healthy, to keep it working, and we continuously need to do so. But I do think that having a welfare state, which is better than, for example, in the US or in other countries, is a good thing. It's a very European thing. I think even we as market-oriented liberals would say so, which is good. And so it's a plus for Germany. We could sell. Out of that idea, out of that thought, comes the idea that I think it wouldn't be a good idea to have like not full access to the welfare states to someone paying taxes, having a job, and playing with the rules in Germany. I think for job search it's fine, but afterwards everybody's the same rights, everybody equal.
Once you're in, and you should be allowed the same rights as everybody else. All right, well, I can see that I'm doing my best to make this difficult for you, but you keep on coming back with very reasonable answers. So I'm going to make it even more difficult for you. I just said try to be concrete, and that's one of the things that we want from politicians. But the other thing we want from politicians is vision. So we briefly touched upon this last night, and said how great it would be if we could be 200, maybe 250 years in the future and have a look on Europe and see what it has become. Now you not only have the possibility to look back 250 years from now, but in the meantime you were almighty and you have had the possibility to shape Europe in the way you want it. So 250 years from now we all look back and we see the Europe as the liberal politician from Germany prophesied it would be on this day in Sweden. What will we see?
Well, nice perspective. Well, first of all, I have to go back from migration policies coming to the actual state of Europe, which is not perfect, I think. I'd like to have a Europe which is a state, a federal state. In 250 years, even 50 years from now, I do want to have a European passport, not a German one, a European one. I do want a European government, elected, fairly elected by all the people all over Europe by one man, one vote rule. I'd like to have this government doing a common foreign and security policy. To give us a voice in the world when it comes to being on one level with China or other regions. But I don't want Europe to be centralized. For example, I would say in other fields of policy, I mean, as a German liberal, I don't believe in centralized states. And I think, for example, that Europe is doing agricultural policy is a joke. And not a modern answer. So I'd like to have a rescheduling of what is done by which level in Europe. And of course, coming back to our topic today, I want Europe to be competitive. We need competitive businesses all over Europe, not only in Germany and some other states. And I want it to be vital, which means we as whole Europeans needs to be better when it comes to migration. Because we all, or most of us, with some exceptions, share the perspective of being an aging continent, shrinking populations. I don't think that's a good idea. I think especially as a liberal who always looks positive in the future, always believes in progress and human ideas and all that stuff. I think you need to have a vital and young enough population. So that would be 3 points to start. But if you give me some more time, perhaps having the perspective of being almighty, then might come some other ideas. But I hope only good ones.
Well, I guess if we start off with a German politician quoting Churchill in his speech, And it's not so strange that the F word already came out early in the day. Thank you very much for coming all the way over here. Is there one last question?
I think there was one.
One last question to the audience.
Hi, I'm Johannes. Well, thank you for that interesting presentation. You mentioned one thing that you think Germany needs, and I would say most of Europe probably, is a better debate on integration. Could you elaborate a bit on that? I mean, what do you mean and how do we achieve it?
Well, one thing I already mentioned, not blaming people for failures of politicians, for failed policies in the past, would be a good point to start. Second, understand what Europe stands for. We are a liberal continent. We believe in individual rights, individual freedom. That means, for example, everybody has the right to believe in whatever he likes to and to live his religion. Which says something about the Islamophobia debate I feel all over Europe, especially in Germany. For example, I have in countries like Germany debates, is it a good idea to build a mosque? I mean, come on. We have individual rights. Of course they can build a mosque, it's a good thing. On the other hand, of course, everybody has to play with the rules. Everybody has to accept the constitutions we have, the individual rights for everybody, of course. But in the integration debate in Germany, from my point of view, there's too much blaming of individuals for policy failures, and there's not enough understanding of the value system we actually stand for. And from my point of view, I think there's too much talk about the Islam isn't part of Europe and bullshit like that. And that would be a good place to stop these debates. Because it's not about, even if we want to attract like Vietnamese people or Philippine people to come to Europe or come to Germany, they don't care about the Islam. But they care about, are we matching, are we really living the values we talk about? And I don't think that we do that at every part of the debates we've seen over the last years in Germany. And I'm not an expert for other countries, but as far as I understand the Dutch debate, for example, just as an example, in some other European countries as well.
Well, when I do training in public speaking, I often say facts and statistics are very important, but the only real way of knowing if you've reached the audience, if people feel those hairs in the back of their necks standing up. You definitely achieved that today very well. Thank you very much. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have a coffee break.